The air was thick with the scent of peonies and champagne as I, Nora Caldwell, stepped into the grand atrium of the Willow Grove estate. It was my brother's wedding day, a lavish affair with crystal chandeliers casting prisms across the marble floors. I adjusted the strap of my emerald green dress, a dress I'd chosen for its quiet elegance, hoping it would help me blend in. In my hands, I clutched a small velvet box, a wedding gift I'd spent weeks crafting, a pair of cufflinks for my brother, Theo, engraved with the coordinates of the park where we used to play as kids. I wanted to be here, to be part of this day, but the weight of every sidelong glance made my steps feel heavier. The usher, a young man with a clipboard, gave me a polite but fleeting smile. "Caldwell party? You're at table 19, he said, gesturing toward the far corner of the room, near the kitchen doors and a wilting floral arrangement. I followed his direction, weaving through clusters of guests in glittering gowns and tailored suits. At the head table, Theo was laughing with his new bride, Elise, their hands intertwined. My mother, radiant in a silver gown, was chatting with Elise's parents, her laughter bright. My younger sister, Ivy, the maid of honor, was adjusting Elise's veil, her smile wide and effortless. They looked like a perfect family portrait, one I wasn't part of. Table 19 was a collection of afterthoughts. Great Uncle Harold, who smelled of pipe tobacco and muttered to himself, a distant cousin's toddler scribbling on the tablecloth with a crayon, and an empty chair with a cracked name card that read Nora. I sat down, smoothing my dress, feeling like I'd been invited to a party I'd already been written out of. Ivy glanced over, her eyes flickering with something, pity maybe, before she turned back to the head table. A few guests whispered, their gazes darting toward me, then away, as if my solitude was a spectacle they didn't want to stare at too long. I'd always been the quiet one in the Caldwell family. Theo was the charmer, the golden boy who'd built a tech startup from scratch and sold it for millions before he turned 30. Ivy was the artist, her sculptures gracing galleries across the state, her creativity celebrated at every family gathering. And me? I was the florist, the one who kept the family's small flower shop running after Dad passed away a decade ago. I arranged bouquets for birthdays, anniversaries, funerals, always there, always useful, but never the centerpiece. Growing up, I didn't mind the shadows. I was the one who helped Theo with his college applications, staying up late to proofread his essays. I taught Ivy how to braid her hair for her first art show, even drove her to the venue when she was too nervous to take the bus. When Mom struggled with the shop's bills after Dad's death, I took over the bookkeeping, worked double shifts, and paid off the debt without ever asking for a thank you. "You're our rock, Nora," Mom used to say, but it always felt like a backhanded compliment, like being a rock meant I was expected to stay still, unmovable, unnoticed. I'd never asked for much. I clapped at Theo's award ceremonies, helped Ivy set up her exhibits, and even arranged the flowers for this very wedding. Hundreds of peonies and roses, hand-tied with care, all because I wanted Theo's day to be perfect. But last Thanksgiving, when I asked if we were doing a family dinner, Ivy texted back, "Just the core group this year, small vibes." I stared at the message, my throat tight, realizing I wasn't part of the core group, despite everything I'd done. Now, at the wedding, the DJ's voice booms through the speakers. "All the single ladies, to the dance floor for the bouquet toss." A ripple of laughter spread through the room. A few guests glanced my way, their smiles teasing. Uncle Harold chuckled, oblivious, while the toddler at my table banged his spoon. I stayed seated, my hands clasped in my lap, my eyes fixed on the flickering candle in front of me. I wondered if anyone here would even notice if I slipped out the door and never came back. The ballroom doors swung open with a quiet thud, but it was enough to make the room pause. A man stood in the entryway, tall and poised, his black suit tailored to perfection. His dark hair was swept back, and his eyes, sharp, steady, scanned the room before landing on me. The chatter died down as he walked straight toward table 19, his steps deliberate, cutting through the sea of guests like a ship through still water. Whispers followed him, but he didn't falter, didn't glance at anyone else. He stopped at my table, leaned down, and said, "I'm so sorry I'm late, darling. The traffic was a nightmare." Before I could process his words, he brushed a soft kiss against my temple, the kind of gesture that felt intimate, natural, not forced. I froze, my mind racing. I didn't know this man, but his voice was calm, his touch grounding. He pulled back, his hazel eyes meeting mine, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "If you want me to leave, just say the word," he whispered. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. He turned to the usher, who'd been staring, a champagne flute dangling in his hand. "There's been a seating error," the man said smoothly. "I'm with her." The usher stammered, "Of course, sir." And before I knew it, we were being led to the main table, right beside Theo and Elise. The room seemed to hold its breath. Ivy's jaw dropped, her fork suspended midair. Theo's smile faltered, his eyes darting between me and the stranger. Mom's hand froze on her wineglass, her expression a mix of shock and confusion. The man, whose name I later learned was Julian, kept a hand lightly on my back as we sat down, a gesture that felt protective but not possessive. "I saw you from across the room," he murmured, his voice low so only I could hear. "You looked like you needed an ally. I can explain later. Just play along if you're okay with it." I nodded, still stunned, as the room buzzed with whispers, but for the first time that night, I didn't feel invisible. After the toasts, Julian leaned in again. "You don't have to say anything now, but I owe you an explanation." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small business card. "Nora Caldwell, Caldwell's Flowers." He said, "You left this at a vendor market 2 years ago. I was buying flowers for my sister's birthday, and you helped me pick the perfect bouquet. You said, flowers aren't just decoration, they're a language." That stayed with me. I stared at the card, memories flickering back. I vaguely remembered a man with kind eyes, asking about peonies for his sister. "You kept this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded. "I looked you up after, saw your name on the wedding vendor list, and I don't know. I saw you sitting there tonight, and you looked like you needed someone to see you. So I walked in. My heart pounded. Why?" He smiled, soft and genuine. "Because you gave me a moment of kindness once, without even knowing it. I wanted to give you one back." The music shifted, and guests began drifting to the dance floor. Julian stood, offering his hand. "Care for some air?" I nodded, and we slipped out to the estate's garden, where fairy lights twinkled against the night sky. The air smelled of jasmine and frost, and for the first time that evening, I could breathe. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I think so," I said, my heels dangling from my fingers. "I'm just waiting for someone to tell me I'm overreacting." He chuckled. They'd be wrong. Silence settled between us, comfortable and warm. Then the garden gate creaked open. Ivy stepped out, her lavender dress catching the moonlight. She crossed her arms, her expression a mix of irritation and unease. "What's going on, Nora?" she asked. "Who is he?" "He's someone who saw me," I said simply. "That's not an answer," she snapped, turning to Julian. "Do you even know her, or are you just here to stir things up?" Julian didn't flinch. "I'm here because she deserved to be seen in a room full of people pretending she didn't exist." Ivy scoffed, but before she could reply, Mom appeared, her silver gown shimmering. She didn't greet me, didn't ask why we were outside. "You didn't need to make a scene," she said, her voice sharp. "This is Theo's day." The familiar weight pressed down, the expectation to shrink, to fade, to let them shine. I nodded slowly, then looked at Julian. "Thank you for walking in." "You're leaving?" he asked, his brow creasing. "I've been leaving for a long time," I said. "I just needed to stand up first." I turned to Ivy. "You'll always have your spotlight. Don't worry." Then to Mom, "You can stop acting like I'm a surprise you didn't sign up for." I walked back inside, past the floral arrangements I'd made, past the head table where Theo was toasting his bride, past table 19 where no one waited. I returned to my hotel room, my hands steady as I packed my bag. A knock came at the door. I opened it to find Ivy, her heels off, her eyes red-rimmed, a water bottle in her hand. "I don't want to fight," she said softly. I need to say something." I stepped aside, and she sat on the edge of the bed, her shoulders slumped. "I saw your face tonight," she said, her voice breaking, "when Mom said it was Theo's day. I've always been the free spirit, the one who got to shine because I was loud, because I demanded it. But it came at a cost. I've been falling apart, Nora. My last exhibit flopped, and I've been pretending it didn't. Mom told me to keep smiling. Theo said to focus on the wedding. So I did." She looked at me, tears brimming. "I pushed you away because you were the steady one. You made it look easy to be okay, and I was jealous. I thought if I kept being the star, no one would see how much I was breaking." I sat beside her, the silence heavy but not hostile. "I didn't need you to apologize," I said. "I just needed you to stop pretending I wasn't there." She nodded, then handed me a folded napkin from the wedding, her handwriting scrawled across it. "You were never a shadow. I just couldn't handle your light." We didn't hug, didn't cry, just sat in a shared stillness that felt more honest than any speech. Later, I stood in the hotel's courtyard, the fairy lights casting a soft glow. Julian appeared beside me, 2 mugs of hot chocolate in his hands. "Thought you might need something warm," he said, handing me one. "I'm not sure what tonight was," I admitted, the steam rising between us. "Neither am I," he replied. "But I didn't come to be a hero. I came because you gave me a moment of kindness once, and it changed me. I wanted to return the favor." "I'm not someone you need to save," I said, my voice firm. "I know," he said, his gaze steady. "I don't want to save you. I want to stand beside you, if you'll let me." It wasn't a promise or a plea, just an offer. I sat on a wrought iron bench, and he joined me, not too close, not too far. We sipped our drinks in silence, the kind that didn't demand words, the kind that said, "I see you." After a while, he said, "You don't have to decide anything tonight, but if you want someone who already values you, I'll keep showing up." I didn't reply, but I didn't leave either. The lights above us hum, and for the first time in years, I realized stillness could mean safety, not invisibility. 3 weeks later, Mom texted, "Family brunch at ours. Casual. Would love for you to come." No apology, just an invitation. I stared at the message, then at the napkin Ivy had given me, tucked into my journal. I replied, "I'll be there." The house smelled of coffee and nostalgia. Same creaky stairs, same framed photos on the mantel. They were gathered around the dining table, Theo pouring juice, Elise passing pastries, Ivy sketching on a napkin. Heads turned as I walked in. Ivy smiled, small but real. Theo nodded. Mom gestured to a chair, not in the corner, but near the middle. I pulled it out myself, and no one objected. The room didn't burst into applause or freeze in guilt. It just shifted, like it remembered I'd always been there. Ivy slid the butter my way without a word. I spread it on my toast. No grand gestures, just the clink of plates and the hum of conversation. Across the table, yes, he was there, caught my eye. He didn't grin, didn't nod, just looked at me like I'd always belonged. I didn't come back to be chosen. I came back to remind them I'd never left, and maybe I'd always belonged. Not because they made space, but because I stopped waiting for them to. If you've ever felt like a shadow at your own family's table, you're not alone.